What happens when a marriage becomes a death sentence? Samantha Abiola thought she was saving her family when she agreed to marry Heinwu Zhang, the cold heir of Seoul's most dangerous mafia syndicate. But on her wedding night, a stranger slips her a flash drive, evidence that her father's betrayal ignited a blood feud years ago, and she's nothing more than collateral damage. Hours later, that stranger is found dead in an alley, his throat slit. Now, trapped in a gilded cage with a husband who might be her only ally or her greatest enemy, Samantha must uncover the truth before she becomes the next casualty. In a world where love is weakness and trust is suicide, can two people bound by lies find freedom in each other? Subscribe now and hit that notification bell because this story of passion, betrayal, and survival will leave you breathless. Drop a comment below. Would you fight for love or run for your life? The blood appeared before Samantha could scream. She stood frozen in the marble hallway of the Zhang family compound, her wedding hanbok still pristine and suffocating, watching as two men in black suits dragged a body past her bedroom door. The man's head lolled backward, and she caught a glimpse of his face, the same face she'd seen 3 hours ago in the garden, when he'd pressed something cold and metal into her palm and whispered, "Your father lied." They all did. Now he was dead. Samantha's fingers tightened around the flash drive hidden in the folds of her dress. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the men disappeared around the corner, their footsteps silent despite the weight they carried. She should have felt something: horror, grief, fear. Instead, she felt the sharp clarity that came with understanding. Her marriage wasn't a beginning. It was an execution waiting to happen. The door at the end of the hall opened, and Heinwu stepped out, adjusting the cuffs of his white shirt. His face was expressionless, carved from the same cold marble as the floors beneath their feet. He looked at her for a long moment, his dark eyes revealing nothing. "You should be sleeping," he said, his voice flat. She stopped. Tested the weight of truth versus survival. "I heard something." "You heard nothing." It wasn't a suggestion. He moved past her toward his own bedroom, 3 doors down from hers. Separate. Distant. Exactly as it had been since the wedding ceremony 6 hours ago. "Tomorrow, my mother will take you shopping. You'll need appropriate clothes." Heinwu. His name felt foreign on her tongue, sharp and angular like the Korean consonants she was still learning. "Who is that man?" He paused, his hand on the doorknob. When he turned back, something flickered across his face, warning, perhaps, or the shadow of concern. "What man?" "The one your guards just carried past my door with his throat cut open." The silence stretched between them like a blade. Samantha felt sweat gathering at the base of her spine despite the cool air conditioning. She'd pushed too far, too fast. But she was done being the obedient daughter, the decorative wife. The pawn moved across someone else's board. Heinwu crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. He was taller than she'd realized, and up close, she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands flexed at his sides as though fighting the urge to reach for her or silence her. "Listen to me very carefully, Samantha." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "In this house, you see nothing. You hear nothing. You know nothing. That is how you stay alive." "Alive?" The word came out sharper than she intended. "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning." He glanced over his shoulder, then back at her. "Do you know why your father agreed to this marriage?" "To settle his debts. To save his business." "Is that what he told you?" Something almost like pity crossed Heinwu's features. "Your father didn't agree to anything. This marriage was the price for his life. And if you're not careful, you'll learn that some debts can never be repaid." He left her standing in the hallway, his door clicking shut with a finality that echoed through her bones. Samantha's legs felt weak, but she forced herself to walk back to her bedroom, to close and lock the door, to lean against it until her breathing steadied. The flash drive burned against her skin where she'd tucked it into her bra. She pulled it out, staring at the small black rectangle that had cost a man his life. What secrets could be worth dying for? What truth was dangerous enough to kill over? Her laptop sat on the mahogany desk by the window, still packed half unpacked from her arrival yesterday. Samantha had been in Seoul for 36 hours, married for 6, and already she understood that every choice from this moment forward would determine whether she survived or became another body dragged through marble hallways in the middle of the night. She inserted the flash drive. The files loaded slowly, folders within folders, each labeled with dates going back 15 years. Samantha clicked on the most recent one, her hands trembling. Photos appeared, shipping containers, manifests with her father's signature, bank transfers between Abiola Diplomatic Services and Jong Corporation. Then documents detailing arms deals, human trafficking routes, politicians on payroll. And there, buried in a subfolder marked Lagos 2010, she found it. Photographs of her father shaking hands with Chairman Jong, both men younger, smiling. Behind them stood a warehouse with bodies covered in white sheets. The massacre at Apapa port. Samantha remembered the news coverage, the way her father had locked himself in his study for days afterward, the way her mother had whispered prayers in Yoruba late into the night. 23 people had died in what officials called a gang conflict. The perpetrators were never found. But here was the truth, pixel-perfect and damning. Her father had been there. Had been part of it. Had walked away while others were buried. Nausea rolled through her stomach. She ejected the flash drive and shoved it into the false bottom of her jewelry box, her mind racing. This wasn't just about debt. This was about blood. About betrayal. About a past that had finally caught up to the Abiola family, and she was the payment rendered in flesh and vows. A soft knock at her door made her jump. "Miss Samantha?" A woman's voice, gentle and accented. "I brought tea." She opened the door to find a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a careful smile, holding a silver tray. The woman bowed slightly. "I am Mrs. Park, the head housekeeper. I thought you might need something to help you sleep. Your first night in a new home can be difficult." Samantha accepted the tea with shaking hands, grateful for the warmth. "Thank you. That's very kind." Mrs. Park's eyes flickered to the hallway, then back to Samantha. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her with practiced quietness. When she spoke again, her voice was barely audible. "The man who gave you something in the garden, he was trying to help you. He was one of the old guard, loyal to Heinwu's grandfather before Chairman Jong took control." She paused, weighing her words. "You should know that Heinwu is not like his father. But he is trapped, just as you are." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I knew your mother." Mrs. Park's eyes glistened. "Before you were born, before she married your father, she worked at the Nigerian embassy here in Seoul. She was kind to me when I had nowhere else to go. I owe her a debt." She pressed a card into Samantha's hand. "If you ever need help, truly need it, call this number. Tell them Mrs. Park sent you." Before Samantha could respond, the woman was gone, slipping out as quietly as she'd arrived. Samantha stared at the card, no name, just a series of numbers. Another secret, another thread in a web she was only beginning to understand. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat by the window watching the Seoul skyline glitter like scattered diamonds, wondering which buildings housed more secrets like hers, how many other women were trapped in gilded cages, waiting for the inevitable. Dawn broke gray and cold. Samantha dressed in jeans and a sweater, ignoring the traditional clothes hanging in her closet. If they wanted her to play the obedient wife, they'd be disappointed. She'd been raised by a man who taught her to negotiate, to read rooms, to survive in spaces that didn't want her. Those skills would serve her now. The breakfast table was an exercise in performance. Chairman Jong sat at the head, reading a newspaper in Korean, his silver hair immaculate. Heinwu's mother, a beautiful woman with ice in her smile, poured tea with mechanical grace. Heinwu himself sat across from Samantha, eating in silence. "Did you sleep well, daughter-in-law?" Mrs. Jong's Korean was slow, careful, making sure Samantha understood. "Very well, thank you." Lie, but a necessary one. Chairman Jong lowered his newspaper, studying her with eyes that had seen too much and forgiven nothing. "You look like your mother." She was beautiful too. Samantha's blood ran cold. "You knew my mother?" "Many years ago. Before she became respectable." He smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Samantha had ever seen. "Tell me, does she know you're here? Does she know what her husband agreed to?" "My mother passed away 2 years ago." The words came out steady, though grief still lived in her chest like a stone. Chairman Jong folded his newspaper with precise creases. Then she was spared the knowledge of what her daughter would become. "Perhaps that's mercy." Heinwu's chopsticks clattered against his bowl. "Father, that's enough." "Is it?" The old man's gaze shifted to his son. "You think I don't know you spend your nights planning?" You think I don't see the way you look at her, like she's a problem to solve instead of a tool to use. He stood, straightening his suit jacket. Remember what she is, Hyun-woo. Remember why she's here. Sentiment is a luxury our family cannot afford. He left the room trailed by 2 bodyguards, and the silence he left behind felt heavy enough to crush bones. Mrs. Jong smiled tightly. Shall we go shopping now, Samantha? I think some traditional hanbok would suit you beautifully. Samantha wanted to refuse, to rage, to flip the table and demand answers. Instead, she nodded and followed her mother-in-law out to the waiting car, because survival meant choosing your battles, and this wasn't one she could win. Not yet. The shopping district of Gangnam was a fevered dream of luxury, designer stores with windows displaying clothes that cost more than most people's annual salaries, cafes where women with perfect makeup sipped expensive coffee, streets so clean they seemed artificial. Mrs. Jong moved through it all like a queen, pointing at garments for sales assistants to retrieve, never once asking Samantha's opinion. You'll need 5 hanbok for formal occasions, Mrs. Jong said, examining a silk dress in deep crimson. 3 Western-style cocktail dresses for business dinners. And appropriate undergarments. I noticed you brought very little with you. Because I was given 2 days' notice, Samantha thought but didn't say. Because your husband held my father's life ransom, and I packed what I could grab. This one. Mrs. Jong held up a hanbok in ice blue, the embroidery so delicate it looked like frost. For the chairman's birthday celebration next month. You'll need to look perfect. Many important people will be watching. Watching me. Samantha tried to keep her voice neutral. Why? Because you're a curiosity, dear. A Nigerian bride in a Korean family. Some will wonder if you're a sign of our expanding influence. Others will wonder if you're a weakness to exploit. She smiled that cold smile again. I suggest you prove yourself the former rather than the latter. The fitting took hours. Samantha stood on platforms while women pinned and measured, their hands impersonal and efficient. Through the boutique window, she watched Seoul move past, businessmen in sharp suits, students in uniform, elderly women carrying shopping bags. Normal lives. Free lives. Mrs. Jong, Samantha said carefully, may I ask you something? Of course. Why did Hyun-woo agree to marry me? Surely there were other options, other ways to settle whatever debt my father owed. The older woman's hands stilled on the fabric she was examining. For a moment, Samantha thought she wouldn't answer. Then she spoke, her voice softer than before, almost human. My son agreed because he's trying to protect you from his father's original plan. Chairman Jong wanted your father dead and your family destroyed as an example. Hyun-woo convinced him that a marriage alliance would be more strategic, more profitable. She met Samantha's eyes in the mirror. So you see, you should be grateful. Whatever prison this feels like, it's better than the alternative. Gratitude. For being a bargaining chip. For having her life turned into a transaction. Samantha swallowed the bitter laugh threatening to escape and nodded instead, playing the role expected of her. They returned to the compound late afternoon, Samantha's arms full of shopping bags she hadn't wanted. As they entered the main house, she heard voices from the study, male, angry, arguing in rapid Korean too fast for her to follow. She recognized Hyun-woo's voice and another younger man's, both rising in volume. Mrs. Jong's expression tightened. Go to your room, Samantha. Now. For once, Samantha didn't argue. She climbed the stairs, but instead of going to her bedroom, she crept closer to the study, pressing herself against the wall where shadows gathered. Her Korean wasn't fluent, but she caught fragments. Can't trust her. Father's orders. You're being weak, cousin. Cousin. So that was Ji-hoon, Hyun-woo's cousin whom she'd briefly met at the wedding. Charming smile, predatory eyes, the kind of man who calculated every interaction for maximum benefit. She's my wife. Hyun-woo's voice cut through the argument like steel. That means she's under my protection. You will not touch her. You will not threaten her. You will not even look at her wrong, or I swear to God, Ji-hoon. Or what? You'll tell father? He's the one who wants her interrogated. We need to know what Abiola told her, what she knows about Lagos. That flash drive is still missing. Samantha's heart stopped. They knew. Of course they knew. The dead man must have been seen giving it to her, must have been caught and tortured for information before they killed him. I'll handle it. Hyun-woo's voice had gone quiet, dangerous. Give me time. Time. Ji-hoon laughed, bitter and sharp. Time is what we don't have, cousin. The election is in 3 months. If evidence of our involvement in Lagos surfaces, father loses his political leverage, we lose our protection, and this entire empire collapses. That Nigerian girl is a liability we can't afford. Then it's a good thing she's not your problem to solve. A door slammed. Footsteps approached. Samantha fled back to her bedroom, her pulse racing, her mind spinning through implications and half-formed plans. They were looking for the flash drive. They would search her room eventually, would find it no matter how well she hid it. She needed a better solution. She needed leverage. She needed Hyunwoo. But could she trust him? He'd saved her from his father's original plan, yes, but he was still Jong. Still part of the organization that had killed 23 people, that trafficked weapons and humans, that eliminated problems with bullets and blades. His protection only extended as far as his family's interests. Unless she could make herself more valuable alive than dead. That evening, Samantha waited until the house settled into its nighttime rhythm before slipping out of her room. She'd watch the guards' rotation, memorize their patterns. The compound was a fortress, but every fortress had weak points if you knew where to look. Hyunwoo's door was closed, a line of light visible beneath it. She knocked softly, 3 quick taps. Come in. He sat at his desk, surrounded by papers and glowing computer screens, still dressed in his day clothes though it was past midnight. He looked exhausted, the careful mask he wore slipping to reveal something more human underneath. Worry, perhaps, or the weight of choices that kept sleep at bay. We need to talk, Samantha said, closing the door behind her. It's late. I don't care. She crossed her arms, summoning every ounce of courage her mother had instilled in her. I know about Lagos. I know about the flash drive. And I know your cousin wants me dead. Hyunwoo went very still. What exactly do you know about Lagos? Enough. Samantha pulled the flash drive from her pocket. She'd started carrying it everywhere, insurance against sudden searches. I know my father was there. I know your father ordered the massacre. I know this marriage was never about debt settlement. It was about keeping me close so you could control what I might reveal. He rose slowly, moving around the desk to stand before her. This close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the scar on his left cheekbone half hidden by careful grooming, the way his hands clenched and unclenched as though fighting for control. If you know all that, he said quietly, then you know how much danger you're in. Why tell me? Why not run? Because I have nowhere to run to. Because my father's probably already dead or might as well be. Because the only way I survive this is by making myself indispensable. She held up the flash drive. This is a copy. I have the original hidden somewhere your people will never find it. If anything happens to me, if I disappear, if I have an accident, if I suddenly decide to jump off a bridge, that information goes public. Every news outlet, every police department, every international human rights organization gets a full copy. You're bluffing. Try me. They stared at each other, the air between them crackling with tension and something else, something neither of them wanted to name. Finally, Hyunwoo smiled, a real smile, small and almost impressed. You're braver than I thought. Or more foolish. He gestured to the chair by his desk. Sit. If we're going to negotiate, we might as well be comfortable. Samantha sat, her heart still racing, but her hands steady now. This was familiar territory, the dance of negotiation, the careful exchange of power and information. Her father had taught her well, even if everything else about him had been a lie. What do you want? Hyunwoo asked, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter. He offered her one. She took it. I want the truth. All of it. What happened in Lagos, why my father betrayed your family, why I'm really here. That's a long story. We have all night. Hyunwoo drank, the liquor catching the lamplight like amber fire. When he spoke, his voice was distant, recounting history that still bled into the present. 15 years ago, my grandfather ran this organization. He was old school, brutal when necessary, but with a code. No drugs, no children, no innocence. He partnered with your father to establish shipping routes between Asia and Africa. Legitimate business on the surface, weapons underneath. Your father was the perfect partner, diplomatic immunity, connections in every port, a face people trusted. He paused, refilling his glass. Then my grandfather died. My father took over and changed the rules. Expanded into human trafficking, pharmaceuticals, political blackmail. Your father objected. Said it violated their agreement. Father saw it as weakness. So he decided to teach my father a lesson, Samantha finished. Lagos was a message. Lagos was supposed to be a simple weapons transfer. But your father had contacted Interpol, was going to turn witness in exchange for immunity. Father found out. Decided to make an example. Hyenwoo's jaw tightened. 23 dock workers died because they were in the wrong place when my father's men arrived. Your father watched from his car and did nothing. The whiskey turned to acid in Samantha's throat. My father just watched? He chose his life over theirs. Can't say I blame him entirely. Father would have killed him too if he'd interfered. Hyenwoo met her eyes, and she saw something like sympathy there. After that, your father disappeared from the business. Paid his protection money on time, kept his mouth shut, raised his daughter. Father let him live as long as he stayed quiet. So what changed? Why come after him now? Why this marriage? Because your father got desperate. His business was failing, legitimately failing, nothing to do with us, and he reached out to father's enemies. Offered to testify about Lagos in exchange for financial support. Hyenwoo's expression hardened. He was going to sell us out to save himself. Again. Samantha wanted to defend her father, to say it wasn't true, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The man who'd taught her about honor and integrity had built his life on cowardice and blood money. The betrayal hurt worse than any physical wound. And you? She asked. Where were you in all this? I was 18 when Lagos happened. Away at university in America, studying business, pretending my family fortune came from shipping containers full of electronics. He laughed without humor. Father didn't tell me the truth until I came home. By then, it was too late to do anything but accept it or walk away. Why didn't you walk away? Because he would have killed me. Because my mother and younger sister would have paid the price for my rebellion. Because sometimes, Samantha, survival means swallowing your soul piece by piece until you can't remember what you believed in anymore. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Sound familiar? It did. God help her, it did. So this marriage, Samantha said slowly, was your way of protecting me from your father's initial plan while also keeping me close enough to control the threat I pose. Essentially, yes. And the rumors about you? About being gay. Hyenwoo's smile turned sharp. A useful fiction. Father's enemies used to send women to seduce me, gather intelligence, create leverage. After I started that rumor, they stopped. Gave me space to work without constantly watching my back for honey traps. He tilted his head, studying her. Does it bother you? That your husband might prefer men? I'd prefer an honest gay husband to a lying straight one. Samantha surprised herself by meaning it. At least then I'd know where I stand. You stand in the same place I do. Trapped between loyalty and morality, trying to find a way forward that doesn't end with one of us dead. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. I can protect you, Samantha. But you have to trust me. You have to stop investigating. Stop digging into things that will only paint a bigger target on your back. And if I don't? Then my cousin will convince father that you're too dangerous to keep alive, and there won't be anything I can do to stop it. Jihoon has been positioning himself as heir apparent for years. One more body won't trouble his conscience. Samantha thought of the dead man in the hallway, throat cut, dragged away like garbage. Thought of her father, wherever he was, probably already knowing his daughter was forfeit. Thought of her mother, buried in Lagos 2 years ago, escaping this nightmare through death. She thought of survival, and what it cost, and whether she was willing to pay it. I need something from you, she said finally. If I'm going to stop investigating, if I'm going to play the obedient wife and pretend I don't know what I know, I need assurance that my father stays alive. That whatever punishment you've planned for him doesn't include a bullet. Hyenwoo considered this. Father wants him dead. Then convince him otherwise. You managed to turn my execution into a marriage. Use that same negotiating skill. She leaned forward, matching his intensity. My father's a coward, yes, but he's still my father. I won't stand by and watch him die. That's my line in the sand. And if I can't guarantee his safety, then I'll make sure this flash drive reaches every news outlet in Korea and Nigeria before your cousin can sharpen his knife. They stared at each other across the desk, two people bound by circumstance and necessity, neither willing to blink first. Finally, Hyenwoo nodded. I'll talk to father. Make the case that your father's more useful alive. He still has political connections, diplomatic access. But you have to give me something in return. What? Trust. Real trust. He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the compound's gardens. In 6 weeks, there's a charity gala. All of Father's business associates, political allies, and potential enemies will be there. You'll attend with me. You'll smile, play the devoted wife, show everyone that this marriage is solid and beneficial. You'll be my shield against the women my cousin will inevitably send to test me. And in return? In return, I'll keep you alive. I'll protect you from Jihoon. And I'll do everything in my power to make sure your father sees his next birthday. He turned back to her, and something in his expression had shifted, softer, more vulnerable. I know you have no reason to trust me. I know I'm asking you to place your life in the hands of the enemy. But Samantha, I'm the only ally you have in this house. And whether we like it or not, we're bound together now. Your survival is my survival. Samantha wanted to refuse. Wanted to spit in his face and storm out and find her own way forward. But she'd been raised to be pragmatic, to recognize when leverage existed and when it didn't. Hyun-woo was right, he was her only option. Her only chance. She stood, closing the distance between them, and held out her hand. Deal. But if you betray me, if you let anything happen to my father, I'll burn your entire family to the ground. Consequences be damned. He took her hand, his grip warm and surprisingly gentle. I'd expect nothing less. They shook on it, two people making promises in the dark, knowing that promises in their world were written in water and blood, easily broken, impossible to trust. But sometimes, even false hope was better than none at all. If you're hooked by Samantha and Hyun-woo's dangerous dance of survival and secrets, make sure to like this video and subscribe for the next part where the real game begins. Drop a comment telling me, can Samantha really trust Hyun-woo, or is she walking straight into a trap? The next few weeks unfolded in a strange routine. Samantha learned to navigate the compound's unspoken rules, where she could walk and where armed men watched from shadows, which rooms were safe and which doors stayed locked, how to read the servants' expressions for warnings of approaching danger. She took Korean lessons from a patient tutor, studied the family's business holdings through public records, and played the role of dutiful daughter-in-law with increasing skill. Mrs. Jong warmed to her incrementally, teaching her how to prepare traditional tea, how to bow at precise angles for different social situations, how to dress for maximum impact. It was education as armor, and Samantha absorbed every lesson, understanding that knowledge was survival. Hyun-woo kept his distance, but checked on her daily, brief conversations in hallways, shared meals where they spoke of nothing important, careful civility that felt like détente. She caught him watching her sometimes, his expression unreadable, and wondered what he saw. A problem contained? Ally potential? Or something more complicated that neither of them wanted to examine too closely? Jihoon circled like a shark scenting blood. He appeared at family dinners with that practiced smile, asking pointed questions about her father, her life in Lagos, what she thought of Korea. Each question was a probe, testing for weakness, searching for cracks in her carefully constructed armor. Your Korean is improving, he said one evening over dessert, his voice honey smooth. Soon you'll be able to understand everything we say. That must make you feel less isolated. Or more aware of how much danger I'm in, Samantha replied with a smile as false as his. But yes, thank you. Language is power, isn't it? His eyes glittered. Indeed it is, cousin-in-law. Indeed it is. Chairman Jong remained a distant threat, appearing only at formal dinners, speaking to her rarely but watching always. Samantha felt his attention like weight on her skin, assessing, calculating, waiting for her to prove herself an asset or a liability. The night before the gala, Hyun-woo knocked on her door near midnight. Come in. He entered carrying a long velvet box. For tomorrow. You'll need to look perfect. Inside lay a diamond necklace that caught the light like captured stars, easily worth more than Samantha's entire education, a symbol of wealth so extreme it felt obscene. I can't wear this, she said. If I lose it, you won't lose it. And yes, you can wear it. You're a Jong now, whether you like it or not. That means displaying our power. He lifted the necklace from its box, the diamonds cascading like water. May I? She turned, gathering her hair off her neck. His fingers brushed her skin as he fastened the clasp, surprisingly gentle, and she felt a shiver run through her that had nothing to do with fear. When had that changed? When had the enemy started feeling like something else entirely? There's something you should know, Heinwu said, stepping back. My father's planning to announce our engagement as permanent tomorrow. He'll present it as a grand romantic gesture, proof of our family's unified future. In reality, it's a message to everyone in that room. The Abiola situation is resolved, their daughter is under our control, and anyone who thinks otherwise is welcome to test that theory. So I'm a trophy. A demonstration of your power. Yes, at least he didn't lie. But that also means you're valuable. Protected. As long as father sees you as an asset, you're safe. And my father? Hien Wu's expression flickered. He's being moved tomorrow. To a safe house outside Seoul. Father agreed to keep him alive as long as he remains cooperative. Can I see him? The question escaped before Samantha could stop it, longing and anger tangled together. Not yet. Maybe after the gala, if everything goes well. If you prove yourself. He moved toward the door, then paused. Samantha? Tomorrow will be dangerous. There will be people there who want me dead, who see this marriage as a weakness they can exploit. Stay close to me. Trust no one else. Not the charming businessmen who compliment you, not the elegant women who invite you for coffee, not even the staff. Everyone at that gala is a potential threat. How do you live like this? The question came out raw. Constantly calculating, never trusting, always waiting for the knife in the dark? You get used to it. Eventually, it becomes the only way you know how to exist. He met her eyes, and for a moment, the mask slipped completely. She saw exhaustion there, and loneliness, and something that might have been regret. Sleep well. Tomorrow changes everything. He left her standing in her bedroom, diamonds glittering at her throat, wondering what tomorrow would bring and whether she'd survive it. The gala was held at the Shilla Hotel in central Seoul, a palace of marble and gold where Korea's elite gathered to see and be seen. Samantha descended from the limousine on Hien Wu's arm, camera flashes exploding around them, reporters shouting questions in Korean and English. She smiled, poised and perfect in a crimson gown that had cost more than her father's annual salary, playing her role with practiced grace. Inside, the ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and champagne, women in designer gowns and men in bespoke suits, everyone beautiful and dangerous and hungry for power. Hien Wu guided her through the crowd with a hand at the small of her back, introducing her to politicians and businessmen and society matrons, each introduction a careful dance of information and impression management. Smile more, he murmured in her ear. You look like you're attending a funeral. Maybe I am, she whispered back. Is that Minister Kim who sponsored the anti-trafficking legislation last year? Yes. And he's on father's payroll, which is why that legislation conveniently exempts shipping companies from inspection requirements. The hypocrisy was stunning. Every person in this room wore respectability like a mask while trafficking in death and corruption underneath. Samantha's smile felt painted on, her face aching from maintaining the illusion. Then she saw him. Her father stood near the bar, looking older than she remembered, grayer, diminished. He wore an expensive suit that hung wrong on his frame, as though he'd lost weight from stress or fear. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and Samantha felt her carefully constructed composure crack. I need air, she told Hien Wu. Not alone. Then come with me. Please. He studied her face, saw whatever desperation showed there, and nodded. They made their way to the terrace, the cool night air a relief after the ballroom's suffocating heat. Seoul sprawled below them, a city of light and shadow, and Samantha gripped the railing until her knuckles turned white. That's him, isn't it? Hien Wu asked quietly. Your father. Yes. The word came out strangled. I didn't know he'd be here. Father's idea of mercy. Letting you see each other before he stopped. Before what? Samantha turned to face him, fear sharp in her chest. What aren't you telling me? Before Hien Wu could answer, the terrace door opened and her father stepped out, flanked by two guards who positioned themselves at discreet distances. Ambassador Abiola looked at his daughter with eyes full of shame and something that might have been love, if love could survive what he'd done. Samantha. Her name in his familiar accent broke something inside her. You look beautiful. Like your mother. Don't. She held up a hand, stopping him from coming closer. Don't you dare talk about her. She'd be ashamed of you. Of what you did. Of what you turned me into. I know. His voice cracked. I know, and I'm sorry. If I could go back, if I could change. But you can't. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. You watched people die, Daddy. 23 people. And then you came home and tucked me into bed and read me stories like your hands weren't stained with blood. Ambassador Abiola flinched as though she'd struck him. I was trying to protect you. To protect our family. Everything I did was to save yourself, Samantha finished. And now I'm paying the price. I'm married to a man I barely know, trapped in a world where people die for knowing too much, where every smile hides a knife. All because you were too much of a coward to stand up and do the right thing. That's not fair. Fair. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You want to talk about fair? Those dock workers in Lagos, were they treated fairly when they were gunned down for being in the wrong place? Was I treated fairly when I was sold like livestock to settle your debts? Hyenwoo touched her arm gently. Samantha. She shook him off, her rage finding its voice after weeks of suffocating silence. No. He needs to hear this. He needs to know what his choices cost. She advanced on her father, forcing him to meet her eyes. I loved you. I believed in you. You taught me about honor and integrity and standing up for what's right. And it was all a lie. Everything you said, everything you claimed to believe, it was just words to cover up the fact that you're nothing but a coward who chose his own life over everyone else's. Her father's face crumpled. I know I failed you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But Samantha, please understand, they would have killed you too. If I'd refused to cooperate, if I'd tried to expose them, Chairman Zhang would have eliminated our entire family. I chose your life over my principles, and I'd do it again. Then you've damned us both. Samantha's voice dropped to a whisper. Because now I have to make the same impossible choices. Now I have to decide how much of my soul I'm willing to sell to survive. The terrace door burst open. Ji-hoon appeared, his expression urgent. Cousin, we have a situation. Inside. Now. Hyenwoo's hand went to his jacket, where Samantha now realized he carried a gun, and his entire demeanor shifted from concerned husband to something harder, more dangerous. What kind of situation? The kind that requires immediate attention. Father's orders. Ji-hoon's eyes slid to Samantha, calculating. Perhaps your wife should remain here with her father. This is family business. She is family, Hyenwoo said coldly. Whatever needs to be said can be said in front of her. Very well. Ji-hoon's smile was all teeth. Minister Kim is dead. Poisoned, apparently. His champagne was tampered with. And security footage shows someone wearing your wife's dress near his table moments before he collapsed. The world tilted. Samantha gripped the railing for support. That's impossible. I was with Hyenwoo the entire time. I never went near Minister Kim. Are you certain? Ji-hoon pulled out his phone, showing them grainy security footage. A woman in crimson moved through the crowd, her face obscured, but the dress identical to Samantha's. Because this looks remarkably like you, cousin-in-law. And given your father's history of betraying the family, one might wonder if assassination runs in the blood. That's not her. Hyenwoo's voice was steel. That's a setup. Someone's trying to frame her. Perhaps. Or perhaps your new bride isn't as innocent as she appears. Ji-hoon's eyes glittered with triumph. Either way, father wants her detained until we can investigate properly. Guards are already moving to secure all exits. I suggest you come quietly, Samantha. Resistance will only make things worse. Samantha's mind raced through implications and options, each one more terrifying than the last. If they detained her, they'd search her belongings, find the flash drive despite her precautions, realize she'd been lying about having a backup. She'd be tortured for information, then killed, and Hyenwoo wouldn't be able to stop it because his own position would be compromised by defending her. Run. Her father's voice, quiet but urgent. Before anyone could react, Ambassador Abiola shoved one of the guards hard, sending him stumbling into Ji-hoon. Samantha, run now. Chaos erupted. The second guard reached for his weapon. Hyenwoo moved with lethal speed, striking the man's wrist so the gun clattered away, then sweeping his legs out from under him. Her father grabbed Ji-hoon in a desperate hold, surprising strength in his aged frame. Go! Hyun-woo shouted at her, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the service stairs. Trust me, Samantha. Run. They ran. Behind them, she heard Ji-hoon shouting orders, heard feet pounding on marble, heard the distinctive crack of a gunshot and her father's scream abruptly cut short. Samantha's heart shattered, but her legs kept moving, following Hyun-woo down the service stairs, through kitchen corridors where startled staff pressed against walls, out into the loading area where expensive cars gleamed in the darkness. Hyun-woo pulled keys from a valet's station, broke into a sleek black Mercedes with practiced efficiency. Get in. Now. Samantha dove into the passenger seat. He peeled out of the parking garage with tires screaming, merging into Seoul's night traffic like a predator entering water. Behind them, she saw men pouring out of the hotel, saw Ji-hoon's face twisted with rage, saw the beginning of a manhunt that would end with both of them dead. My father, she gasped. That gunshot. I know. Hyun-woo's jaw was tight, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. I'm sorry, Samantha. But he saved your life. Don't let that sacrifice be for nothing. Where are we going? They'll find us. Your father controls half the police force, every border crossing, I know what he controls. I also know his blind spots. He took a sharp turn, heading away from the city center. There's a safe house in Busan. A property my grandfather set up years ago, off the books. My father doesn't know about it. We can hide there while I figure out our next move. Our next move. Samantha laughed, hysteria creeping into her voice. Hyun-woo, there is no next move. Your cousin just framed me for murdering a government minister. Your father will hunt us both now. You threw away everything too. She stopped, realization dawning. Why did you help me? You could have stayed, claimed I acted alone, maintained your position. Why risk everything? He was silent for a long moment, navigating through traffic with the skill of someone who'd fled danger before. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw with something like honesty. Because I'm tired, Samantha. Tired of the lies, tired of the killing, tired of pretending I don't have a soul just to survive in my father's world. And because he glanced at her, and in the passing streetlights, she saw his expression unguarded for the first time. Because somewhere in the last few weeks, you stopped being a problem to solve and became someone I wanted to protect. He stopped himself. Someone who deserves better than becoming another body in my family's wake. The confession hung between them, too large and dangerous to examine closely. Samantha's heart hammered against her ribs, fear and grief, and something else tangling together in a knot she couldn't untangle. They'll kill us, she whispered. You know that, right? This isn't some movie where we ride off into the sunset. Your father will hunt us to the ends of the earth. Then we'd better make sure we're worth the effort. Hyun-woo's smile was grim. That flash drive you have, it's our only leverage now. Our only chance at survival. We need to go public, burn down the entire organization before they burn us first. Going public means exposing everything. Your family's crimes, my father's complicity, the politicians on their payroll. It'll cause chaos. Good. Chaos creates opportunities. And right now, opportunities are all we have. They drove through the night, leaving Seoul behind, heading south toward Busan and the coast and whatever uncertain future awaited them. Samantha watched the city lights fade in the rearview mirror, thinking of her father's final act of redemption, of her mother buried in Lagos, of the girl she'd been 6 weeks ago who thought she understood how the world worked. That girl was dead now, killed the moment blood appeared in a marble hallway. The woman who remained was something harder, sharper, forged in the fire of betrayal and survival. She pulled the flash drive from where she'd hidden it in her bra, holding it up to catch the dashboard light. If we do this, she said, we can't go halfway. We burn it all down. Every name, every crime, every dirty secret. No exceptions, no mercy. Hyun-woo reached over, covering her hand with his. The gesture was simple, human, achingly intimate after weeks of careful distance. Then let's burn it all down together. If we're going to destroy my family's empire, we might as well make it count. She nodded, closing her fingers around his. Two people bound by marriage and necessity, transformed by violence into something like allies, maybe even something like partners. The road stretched ahead into darkness, uncertain and dangerous, but for the first time since arriving in Korea, Samantha felt something other than helplessness. She felt fury. She felt purpose. She felt alive. The safe house in Busan was a modest apartment overlooking the coast, hidden in a working-class neighborhood where people minded their own business and asked no questions. Hein-woo paid the building manager in cash for 6 months' rent, using a name that meant nothing, and they climbed 4 flights of stairs to a space that smelled of dust and disuse. My grandfather bought this place 40 years ago, Hein-woo explained, unlocking 3 separate deadbolts. He kept it secret from my father, insurance in case he ever needed to disappear. Before he died, he gave me the deed and made me promise never to tell anyone about it. Why trust me with it now? Because we're past the point of selective trust. From here on out, it's all or nothing. He pushed open the door, revealing a small apartment with basic furniture and windows overlooking the sea. It's not much, but it's safe. For now. They spent the next hour making the space livable, opening windows to air out the mustiness, checking that utilities still worked, inventorying the supplies Hein-woo's grandfather had stocked decades ago. There were canned goods past their expiration date, bottled water, a first aid kit, and most critically, a laptop with satellite internet access. He really planned for every contingency, Samantha said, examining the laptop. Your grandfather sounds like he was careful. He survived the Korean War, built an empire from nothing, and lived to be 93 despite having enemies on 3 continents. Careful doesn't begin to cover it. Hein-woo assembled the laptop and external hard drive system with practiced efficiency. He also taught me that the only way to win against a more powerful enemy is to make their strength irrelevant. We can't outfight my father, but we can outthink him. Samantha plugged in the flash drive, and they spent the next several hours going through every file, every document, every piece of evidence it contained. The scope of the Jong family's criminal empire was staggering. Weapons trafficking across 4 continents, human smuggling operations that had moved thousands of people, drug distribution networks, money laundering through legitimate businesses, blackmail files on everyone from local police chiefs to national politicians. This is enough to bring down half the Korean government, Samantha said, her voice awed and horrified. If we release this, the fallout will be catastrophic, which is exactly what we need. Hein-woo leaned back, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. My father's power comes from secrecy, from people being afraid of what he knows about them. Once we make everything public, that power evaporates. He becomes just another criminal running from the law. And us? We become targets for everyone who gets exposed. Every politician, every businessman, every criminal who gets arrested because of this information, they'll all want us dead. Yes. He met her eyes, unflinching. Which is why we need to be strategic about how we release it. We can't just dump everything at once. We need to create a dead man's switch, a system that releases information automatically if anything happens to us. That way, keeping us alive becomes everyone's priority. They worked through the night, setting up encrypted accounts, uploading files to multiple secure servers, creating a distribution system that would automatically send evidence to news outlets, police departments, and international organizations if they failed to check in daily. It was digital insurance, fragile and imperfect, but better than nothing. Dawn broke over the East Sea, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Samantha stood at the window, watching fishing boats head out for the day's work, feeling disconnected from the normal world where people worried about catch quotas instead of assassination plots. You should sleep, Hein-woo said, appearing beside her with 2 cups of instant coffee. We've been up all night. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see my father. I hear that gunshot. Her voice broke. He died because of me. He died because he finally did the right thing. After 15 years of cowardice, he found courage in the moment that mattered most. Hein-woo set down the coffee and turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. That wasn't your fault, Samantha. If anything, you gave him a reason to be brave. You showed him what integrity looks like, and in his last moments, he tried to live up to that standard. Does that make it hurt less? Tears finally spilled down her cheeks, all the grief she'd been holding back flooding out. Does that make him less dead? No. Hein-woo pulled her close, and she collapsed against his chest, sobbing for her father, for her mother, for the life she'd lost, and the impossible future ahead. He held her through it, one hand stroking her hair, murmuring words in Korean she didn't understand, but felt anyway: comfort, apology, shared sorrow. When the tears finally subsided, she pulled back, embarrassed. I'm sorry. That was human. You're allowed to grieve, Samantha. You're allowed to feel. He wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb, the gesture achingly tender. God knows I've forgotten how after years of pretending I don't care about anything. Do you? She searched his face, looking for truth beneath the careful control. Care about anything? I care about not becoming my father. I care about making my grandfather's death mean something. And he stopped, seeming to struggle with words. I care about you. More than I should, more than is wise, but there it is. The confession hung between them, dangerous and electric. Samantha felt her pulse quicken, felt the space between their bodies like a physical thing, tension and possibility, and the strange alchemy of shared trauma transforming into something else. Hyun-woo. His name was a question and an answer. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce, weeks of careful distance collapsing into hunger and need. Samantha kissed him back with equal intensity, her fingers tangling in his hair, his hands gripping her waist, both of them seeking something, comfort, connection, proof they were still alive despite everything trying to kill them. They stumbled toward the bedroom, shedding clothes between kisses, all the reasons this was a terrible idea forgotten in the rush of skin on skin. Samantha had never felt so present, so viscerally aware of every sensation, his heartbeat against hers, his breath on her neck, the way he whispered her name like a prayer. Afterward, they lay tangled in unfamiliar sheets, morning light streaming through dusty windows, the sounds of Busan waking up filtering in from outside. Hyun-woo traced patterns on her shoulder, his touch reverent. I never expected this, he said quietly. When I agreed to the marriage, I thought it would be business. A transaction to solve a problem. I never thought that the pawn might become a queen? Samantha finished with a slight smile. That the enemy might become home. He kissed her forehead. We should probably talk about what happens next. Plan our next move, figure out how to. His phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. Hyun-woo grabbed it, his expression darkening as he read the messages flooding in. News is breaking. Minister Kim's death is being reported as poisoning. They're showing your picture, calling you a suspect. There's a warrant out for your arrest. Already? Samantha sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. It's only been a few hours. My father moves fast when he wants something. Hyun-woo scrolled through more messages. Ji-hoon is giving interviews, claiming you must have been a plant all along, sent to infiltrate and destroy the family. He's painting himself as the hero who discovered the plot. Bastard's using this to position himself as heir. What about you? Are they looking for you too? Not publicly. Yet? My father will want to handle me privately, either bring me back into the fold or eliminate me quietly. Public scandal hurts the family image. His jaw tightened. Which means we have a small window before they realize I helped you escape. Maybe 24 hours before they start actively hunting both of us. Samantha's mind raced through possibilities. Then we need to move first. Release enough evidence to create chaos, muddy the waters, make it impossible for them to control the narrative. Agreed. But we need to be smart about it. If we release everything at once, the authorities might suppress it. My father's paid too many people, has too much leverage. Hyun-woo started pacing, the strategist in him taking over. We start small. Release evidence of Minister Kim's corruption first, prove he was on our payroll, show he was killed to tie up loose ends, make it look like an internal power struggle within the Jong organization. That protects you, Samantha realized. Makes you look like a victim of your father's paranoia rather than my accomplice. It also gives you cover. If Kim was corrupt and connected to our family, his death becomes about criminal infighting, not some diplomatic assassination plot. It muddies the waters enough that you're not automatically assumed guilty. They spent the next hour crafting a narrative, selecting documents that told a specific story, preparing them for release, setting up anonymous accounts to distribute the information. It was manipulation and truth twisted together, using the same tactics the Jong family had employed for decades, but turning them inward. Ready? Hyun-woo asked, his finger hovering over the send button. Samantha nodded. Burn it down. He pressed send. The next 24 hours were chaos given digital form. News outlets picked up the story. Social media exploded with outrage and speculation. Politicians scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. The evidence was damning, financial records showing Minister Kim receiving regular payments from Jong Corporation, meeting logs proving he'd coordinated with Chairman Jong on legislation, messages discussing cleaning up loose ends, sent hours before his death. Public opinion shifted from Nigerian assassin to corrupt minister eliminated by his own partners. The police were forced to investigate the Jong family connection. Chairman Jong held a press conference denying everything, but his denials sounded hollow against the weight of documentation. And most critically, Samantha became less a villain and more a victim, the innocent bride caught in a criminal organization's internal warfare. Hyun-woo remained unnamed in the initial reports, protecting his position for the moment. "It's working," Samantha said, watching the news coverage on the laptop. "The narrative is shifting. For now. But my father will regroup. He'll start damage control, call in favors, apply pressure." Hyun-woo closed the laptop. "We've bought ourselves time, but not safety. Not yet." A knock at the door made them both freeze. Hyun-woo grabbed the gun he'd taken from the guard at the hotel, moving silently to the door. Through the peephole, he saw an elderly woman holding a covered dish. "Mrs. Park," he breathed, relieved and confused in equal measure. He opened the door. The housekeeper from the Jong compound stood there, looking older and more tired than Samantha remembered, but with those same kind eyes. "I thought you might need this," Mrs. Park said, offering the dish. "And perhaps some information." They let her inside, locking the door behind her. Mrs. Park set down the food and turned to face them with surprising steel in her expression. "How did you find us?" Hyun-woo asked. "Your grandfather told me about this place years ago. Made me promise that if anything ever happened to him, I'd make sure you knew it existed. I've been keeping an eye on it ever since." She looked between them, assessing. "I have news. Your father knows you're alive, Hyun-woo. Ji-hoon let it slip during a family meeting. Chairman Jong has issued orders. You're to be brought back alive if possible, killed if necessary. He won't tolerate betrayal, even from his own son." Hyun-woo's expression hardened. "I expected as much. There's more." Mrs. Park turned to Samantha. "Your father didn't die at the gala. He was shot, yes, but he survived. Chairman Jong is keeping him at the compound, using him as bait to draw you both out." Samantha's heart leaped. "He's alive? Are you certain?" "I saw him this morning. He's injured but stable." Mrs. Park's voice softened. "He asked me to find you, to tell you not to come back for him. He said he's made peace with his choices, and he wants you to live." Tears burned Samantha's eyes again, but this time they were different, gratitude and hope mixed with the grief. Her father was alive. Damaged, imprisoned, but alive. That changed everything. "We need to get him out," she said immediately. "That's what he was afraid you'd say." Mrs. Park shook her head. "The compound is locked down. 20 guards, security cameras everywhere, Ji-hoon personally overseeing your father's detention. It's a trap, child. Chairman Jong is counting on your love making you foolish. Then we won't be foolish." Hyun-woo was already thinking, planning, his mind working through angles. "But we can't leave him there either. If father's using him as bait, he'll kill him eventually, once he realizes we're not taking it. We need to act before that happens." They spent the rest of the day planning an extraction that was equal parts impossible and necessary. The compound security was extensive, but Hyun-woo knew every weak point. He'd grown up studying them, looking for ways to escape his gilded cage. Mrs. Park provided updated information on guard rotations, camera blind spots, and her father's exact location. "This is insane," Samantha said for the 10th time, studying the floor plans spread across the table. "We'll probably die." "Probably," Hyun-woo agreed. "But we'll die trying to save someone we love instead of hiding and waiting for death to find us anyway. That counts for something. Does it?" He took her hand, squeezing gently. "I'd like to think so. The stakes have never been higher. Will Samantha and Hyun-woo survive the rescue mission, or will Chairman Jong's trap close around them? Like this video if you're on the edge of your seat, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the explosive conclusion.